Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our 100th anniversary of Industrial Weekly. I'm your host, Henry Ford. Tonight on our show, we have some special guests, including Richard Trevithek, Edmund Cartwright, Frederick Engel, and Francois Quesnay. Tonight on the show, we decided to go back to the basics, with the word of the day being industrialization. Before we begin, let me enlighten you on what industrialization really is. Industrialization is the process in which a society or country or world transforms itself from a primarily agricultural society into one based on the manufacturing of goods and services. Industrialization began in England in the early 18th century with innovations in the textile industry. People came from rural areas and farms to urban factories for better jobs and pay. Before we begin on today's episode, let me tell you a little bit about myself. As a young boy, my parents were both Irish immigrants, and they ran a small farm in Dearborn, Michigan. When I became 16, I said I'd pack my bags and went to Detroit looking for some better work and pay. Because of the Industrial Revolution, many jobs opened up, and I expanded my knowledge on the internal combustion engine by working at a machine shop. Using my knowledge on the internal combustion engine, I helped design and make the Model T. The Model T was a great success for over 16 years. The Ford Motor Company became a very successful business because I sought out to build a motor car for the great multitude that is so low in price that no man will be unable to own one. During this time, my only other competitor was General Motors. Over these 16 years, my Model T sold extraordinarily. However, Model T sales began to decrease when General Motors released its new lineup of more luxurious automobiles. As a result, I had to lay off many workers because I discontinued the production of the Model T. Many years later, I came out with the Model A as a competitor for the GM vehicles. The Model A brought me back into the motor industry, and it was a great success. Overall, I do believe the industrialization was worth it because I see my ideas and the products that are still being used and built to this day. My legacy still lives on because there are many types of cars out there, some being affordable, some being luxurious, some being used for utility, that are still used today. Well, enough about me. Let me bring my first guest on the show, my friend Richard Trevithek. Richard, welcome to the show, buddy. How are you doing today, Richard?
I'm good, how are you?
Thanks for being on the show, buddy.
Thank you. Such a lovely day outside.
It is indeed.
Thank you. Well, as most of you know, I am the inventor of the steam locomotive. And no, not that George Stephenson. He did not invent it. Instead, he stole all the credit from me. Anyways, I started to develop the idea for transportation where there's a locomotive that runs off water as a source of energy and produces steam. I made the boiler and engine in one piece, and hot water was put into the boiler and red hot iron was inserted into a tube underneath, which caused steam to be raised and the engine was set in motion.
That's very fascinating indeed. That sounds kind of like my internal combustion engine, but without the steam. Well, how'd you plan to accomplish this task?
Well, I started building a miniature model of the steam locomotive in 1796, and then I produced a fully working one.
That's amazing. Isn't that amazing, folks?
Yeah! Thank you.
Please continue.
Well, on Christmas Eve 1801, I took some friends on a test trip with a much larger locomotive.
Thanks for the invite.
I'm sorry, I couldn't find it on the day of. My bad. Well, anyways, I built a steam locomotive and called it the Puffin Devil. But unfortunately, it could only go on short trips, and I kept trying to find a way of keeping up the steam for a longer amount of time. I was looking for someone to fund my finances for my experiments, so I went to London, and in 1808, I finally found a company called Vivian & West that agreed to fund my experiments. Unfortunately, they withdrew only after a couple of days due to the problem of the locomotive.
Hold that thought, Richard. We're going to be right back for this short commercial break.
All right.
Stick around, folks.
Okay.
Buddies!
I'm home. Just came back from my business trip.
Where have you been? Me and Mr. Snuggles were worried sick.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Snuggles. Ah! Oh! Honey, I'm bleeding. Get something. Somebody call 911. Ow.
Sir, what do you need? Is this life-saving device called a Band-Aid? This Band-Aid helps to cease the bleed.
Oh, thank you, sir.
You can get these at one of your local pharmacy or drugstores. Enjoy. Welcome back, everybody, to our episode of Industrial Weekly. If you were with us before the break, we were with Richard Trevethek. Richard, would you please continue?
I created many steam locomotives, such as the Catch Me Who Can, and helped grow the industry massively.
That's pretty fascinating. I do agree. So, how did industrialization change your life?
Well, at first, my life was not very successful due to all the problems of the steam locomotive, but eventually, after I started working and I started to produce more, it gave me fame and fortune and riches. But also, again, due to my lack of business, I went into bankruptcy, lost all my money, and died very down deep.
I'm sorry about that. I'm really sorry. What problems do you think industrial will create for you?
Well, created poor working and living conditions, tension between the classes, and overworked and underpaid employees. If you didn't come up with a great idea after putting so much time and money into it, you were ruined.
That's really interesting. Well, you talk about all these problems. Like, what solutions do you have for them?
Well, some of the ideas I proposed was I encourage people to keep creating new inventions and help come up with new ideas and better ideas to help improve society.
Do you believe industrialization was worth it after all that you've been through?
Are you kidding me? Of course I believe it was worth it. I believe that these ideas and inventions that came out of industrialization would make the world a better place. I have been branded with folly and madness for attempting what the world calls impossibilities. But I shall be satisfied by the great secret pleasure and laudable pride that I feel from having been the instrument of bringing forward new principles and new arrangements of boundless value to my country. The great honor of being a useful subject can never be taken from me, which far exceeds riches.
That's very interesting. And what do you think the world today, and how is it similar or different from you back then?
Well, I think it is great that the people are coming up with new and better inventions every single day, and it's changing the world tremendously. I love it. It is so much more industrialized, and all this new technology they possess is just fascinating. Just like in my period of time, I believe that the people today are going through what you would call an industrial or technological boom, and I think it's just great.
So Richard, do any of the problems of industrialization still exist in your view?
Well, yes, I believe that today, even though working and living conditions have improved, not all, but some of the workers are still being underpaid.
And for your last question I have for you, did any of your hopes or predictions actually come true for the future ahead?
Well, yes, I love the idea of industrialization because I believed it would revolutionize and modernize the world and society. And look at today, all these new ideas and inventions and developments have vastly improved and expanded society. And since these inventions and ideas made the process of manufacturing quicker and more improved, society was able to bloom in what it has become today.
Well, thank you for all your time that you put onto this show.
Thanks so
It's
much.
great seeing you again.
Thanks, you too.
Everybody, Richard Trevethek.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Coming up after the break, we'll have a special interview between an economist and a social activist, and how the Industrial Revolution affected both of them. Stick around on Industrial Weekly. Don't let this happen to you.
What's this?
A Kleenex.
Wow, thanks!
A Kleenex.
Hi! Hi! Hey you! Hey! Hey you! Hey!
What are you doing, you idiot? Give her a call.
Okay, thank you. going?
Oh, hey!
I haven't seen you in so long.
Yeah, I haven't seen you either.
We gotta meet up.
Yeah, let's totally meet up. Okay, bye! And we're back. So today our key word is industrialization. My life was impacted because I saw how industrialization was negatively affecting the lives of the British working class, or proletariat. This social injustice being promoted caused me to help begin a new social movement, communism. How did industrialization affect you, Francois?
Well, industrialization showed me how important agriculture is. I'm most well known for creating the tableau économique, or economic table. I also believe that the earth is the sole source of all riches and that it is agriculture which multiplies wealth.
That's very fascinating. Can you describe some of the major problems of industrialization that you faced?
Personally, I didn't see how industrialization would be able to produce a net contribution or economic surplus to the nation's tax revenues. Industrialization also wouldn't be able to contribute to the needs of the state.
I see. For me, industrialization caused some major problems in England, mainly the social divisions that appeared between the workers and the capitalists. The capitalists no longer saw the workers as human beings, merely another piece of capital. The capitalists could now exploit the workers' desperation for money and food, leaving them to live in filthy slums and work for low wages under terrible and dangerous conditions.
Now, what were your solutions, hopes, expectations? How could the remedy solve these problems?
I expected that America would eventually take over Britain's industrial monopoly, and that the proletariat working class would have to choose to either starve or rebel, and would rise up in a violent revolution against greedy capitalists. My hopes for solution lay in the communist ideals.
To the problems industrialization created, I suggested to Louis XV to remove restrictions from trade and to get rid of taxes so that France could be more financially stable. In the future, I predicted that only the agricultural part of the economy was going to be able to produce a surplus in the following years. However, it was proven that manufacturing was a lot more efficient than I thought.
Alright, so do you believe that industrialization was worth all of the problems that it caused?
No, the benefits didn't outweigh the problems. The government was sterile or not developing after the Industrial Revolution. And even though industrialization benefited most, low prices are not profitable to the laboring class, where cheapness of products lowers the wages of the laboring people. Would you say that the benefits outweighed the problems?
Absolutely not. I believe firmly that industrialization was not worth entire populations living in a state of poverty at the mercy of the greedy capitalists. Economic prosperity for a select few was just not enough of a benefit to justify women and children working long hours for little wages in unsafe and unsanitary conditions.
And how do you feel about the world today? What, in your opinion, are the greatest similarities and differences from back in your day?
The world today is a mess, not quite as I predicted, but similar enough. From the first day to this, sheer greed was the driving spirit of civilization. Capitalists have taken credit for any social progress and have ignored and scapegoated the blame to others for all of the poverty and problems that have resulted from this industrialized world of capitalism. It is similar in that people have not changed from their dependable desires for wealth and prosperity. However, this generation is very different than mine in all of its technological advances. I mean, what are all these shiny touchscreens for?
I see what you mean. A lot more people are unemployed. Jobs are being taken by robots and machines, unlike how it was back in my day, where jobs were plentiful. I still see the classic social hierarchy of wealthy people versus the laboring class.
And so, do any of these industrial problems still remain then, Francois?
Yeah, I see a lot of problems that still exist. Well, people are still in poverty.
For example, people are still dependent on those higher in societal standing for work and for the money they need to survive in the capitalist environment. Poverty, unemployment, and bad living conditions are other problems that still exist in today's society. The people lack security and independence that a communist government could provide.
That's a lot of negativity, Frederick. Did any of your hopes come true, or at least any expectations?
No, none of my hopes came true. The proletariat of England failed to rebel, and the spread of communism has been limited to very few areas. Capitalism continues to thrive in many places, much to my disappointment. However, my prediction that America would become a force to be reckoned with internationally did come true, even though America remains a capitalist nation.
I agree. No, the merchant portion of the economy proved to be quite successful, as well as the agriculture we produce. So I suppose I was wrong about the industry failing us all.
That's very interesting, Francois. But I think that just about wraps up this discussion. Back to you, Henry.
Thank you for that fascinating interview, Francois and Frederick. Now I'd like to bring another special guest, an inventor, in fact, onto our show tonight. Edmund Cartwright, please join us.
Woo! Edmund! And dog!
It's a pleasure to be here tonight.
It's a pleasure to have you. Now, let's focus on industrialization and how it changed your life.
Well, I'd say the massive filth and misery during the industrialization drove me to invent new machines such as the power loom, wool combing machine, and alcohol engine that could improve this wretched lifestyle, specifically in the textile industry. But tonight I would like to just focus on the power loom, it being the most famous invention I am known for.
Interesting. Also, could you share maybe some problems that the industrialization created for you?
Well, at the pinnacle of my career, I began to notice that there were lower wages and less jobs and employment. My invention of the power loom in particular reduced the demand for skilled weavers, thus lowering their wages with some even losing their jobs.
I see. So, what solutions did you propose to fix these?
Well, at the pinnacle of my career, I began to notice that there were lower wages and less jobs and employment. My invention of the power loom in particular reduced the demand for skilled weavers, thus lowering their wages with some even losing their jobs.
I see. So, what were some solutions you proposed to these problems?
Well, I proposed to try to take back my invention after seeing how negatively it affected some people and their labor opportunities. I hoped and expected that my invention would be taken back, but it was too late. People were already buying and using my inventions, saying they were much more effective than hand weavers. Thus, the solution I proposed proved to be worthless.
So, overall, do you believe that industrialization was worth it?
Yes, I think the industrialization was worth it. I think that people who benefited most from this obviously were the factory and cotton mill owners, as they reveled in the newfound wealth of the textile manufacturing industry.
So, overall, I'm saying, do you think that the industrialization was worth it?
Yes, I definitely think that industrialization was worth it. I think that the people who benefited most from this were obviously the factory and cotton mill owners, as they reveled in the newfound wealth of the textile manufacturing industry. The invention of the power loom not only made clothes cheaper and affordable, but it also helped the common people.
So, what do you think of the world today? How is it similar or different from back then?
I think the world today is very advanced. It has even better weaving equipment than during my day. The worlds of mine and today are similar in a way that we both made technological advancements that made weaving faster, efficient, and cheaper.
Do you think any problems in the industrialization world still exist today?
I see employment issues as still existing today. This is because as of today, people need to be more educated to be successful in life. And sometimes people aren't educated that well, so they aren't so successful in finding jobs. In my day, there was lack of employment because machines and inventions started taking the work of actual people.
Last question for you, Mr. Cartwright. Did your hopes and predictions for the future come true?
Some of my hopes and predictions for the future did come true. This is because even though there were numerous renovations in machines like the power loom, there are still adequate wages and even more efficient, affordable inventions like the power loom.
Well, thank you for being on the show tonight.
Thank you.
Woo! Hey, dog!
Okay, coming up after the break, we'll have a special interview between...
It is I, the one and only Ned Ludd, down with all kings but King Ludd. I am the one that has hacked your time-wasting, stupid news channel. Offense intended. I still can't believe you chose Henry Ford as your anchor. He's terrible, and he definitely doesn't have a TV face like moi. You guys keep talking about how amazing this event, industrialization, was and how it has changed everyone's lives for the better. Well, have you ever thought about people around you? Why are you guys so selfish? Industrialization has done nothing but cause problems for me. This horrible event has made my brethren and my life harder due to the creation of machines that eliminated the need for skilled weavers and textile artisans. Working conditions did improve for some workers in factories. However, since I was out of a job, those so-called improved working conditions didn't benefit me at all. Since people like the people running this boring news channel don't care for anyone besides themselves, I've decided to take matters into my own hand. Now or never. My solution to industrialization was to destroy the machines that have caused my fellow weavers and artisans jobs. I even smashed my mother's knitting machines. I told my followers, resist much, obey little. I hope that people will realize the dangers of industrialization and stop the creation of machines, and that skilled workers and textile artisans would have their jobs back. People may have said that industrialization was worth it, but in reality, it wasn't. As I explored the world today, I have concluded that I do not like what the world has become because people rely too much on machines. The world today and my time are similar because machines have taken the need for workers to accomplish a specific task. My nightmare has become even worse because machines today are even more advanced and are taking even more jobs from people. There are so many problems caused by industrialization that I can't even keep track of them all. One problem, as I said before, people are relying too much on those ugly blocks of metal and wood. And those machines are causing people like me their jobs. Sadly, my hopes and predictions did not come true because machines have become the new type of worker. I swear on my life, I shall get my revenge, and this lousy news show will be history.
We apologize for that interruption, but we've gained control of the situation now. Well, every show must come to an end, and afraid this one is near. Overall, this has been a very interesting 100th episode. Thank you for all tuning in to Industrial Weekly, and thank you for all our special guests. As always, this is your host, Henry Ford. Stay classy, Palos Verdes.
Henry Ford! Henry Ford!